Today, we're going to dive into a massive situation that was recently brought to light regarding how Roblox has completely changed the way that players communicate with each other on the platform. Because recently, a massive update was announced on the developer forums that dives into a deeply concerning shift towards using AI to filter player conversations. And this announcement also revealed a massive new global chat system that is being forced onto creators without their permission. But before we begin, make sure to click the like button, hype this video, and help me get to 20,000 subscribers because that would mean the world to me, guys. And without further ado, let's get into it. Now to begin, we're going to look through exactly what was uncovered in this situation before getting to the community backlash. So the first case we'll cover is based on a brand new feature called Chat Summaries, which was announced by a staff member named Rupert. And this feature is designed to replace the classic system where players in different age groups would just see a bunch of dots when trying to read messages from older or younger users. Now the staff claims that seeing those dots breaks the flow of the game and honestly breaks the fun, which led them to create this brand new system. And this is where things take a very questionable turn, because instead of just letting players communicate or keeping the chat blocked, the system will now use machine learning to read the blocked messages and generate a safe narrative summary of what is being said. So now we have established that they're using AI to actively monitor and summarize conversations in real time across the entire platform, which will be very important to take into consideration, because the example they provided shows an AI message appearing in a chat box stating that the group is sharing compliments about their outfits and discussing game items, for example. Now during this time, players are trying to focus on actually playing a game, whether it is an intense action game or a quiet roleplay experience. And having AI suddenly interrupt your chat feed to tell you that other people are complimenting outfits is pretty jarring and completely breaks the immersion. But the way that staff is handling this rollout is very off-putting, especially towards the developers, because in this announcement, they explicitly state that during these tests, users cannot opt out of their messages being summarized. They're completely forcing every single player to have their words fed into an AI summary system, whether they want it or not. And they later claimed that they're building a toggle to allow users to opt out eventually, but the fact remains that millions of players are being subjected to this test without any initial consent. And the big reality is found right in the frequently asked questions section of this announcement. Because when developers specifically asked if they could turn off these real-time chat summaries in their own games, the staff simply replied with no. They claim these are system-generated summaries meant to replace a blocked chat and improve player engagement, which shows that Roblox is completely stripping away the freedom of developers to control the user interface and aesthetic of their own creations. And if we take this into consideration with the fact that many developers spend years crafting very specific atmospheres for their games, you realize that this makes the situation so much worse, because the developer cannot even protect the players from having the chat blocks flooded with vague AI summaries that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual gameplay. Now going to the next part of the situation, we have to look at the other massive feature they are pushing, which is the cross-server chat, because the platform is adding new here and global tabs directly to the chat window. And this global tab will allow players to instantly connect with a massive community of around 200 people who are playing the exact same game but located in completely different servers. They say that they are automatically matchmaking these global servers based on language and locale and age. But the consequences of throwing 200 random players into a single global chat room are brought to the table immediately, because anyone who's familiar with how the platform operates knows that moderating a chat room of that size is an absolute nightmare. The staff claims to have limits on how many messages can be sent and received to avoid servers from being spammed, and they claim that if these limits are reached, messages will be dropped automatically. But dropping messages does not actually stop the toxic behavior or the bypasses from happening in the first place. And just like the chat summaries, the developers are completely locked out of disabling this cross-server chat feature during this test phase. The staff mentions that when it is fully released in the coming weeks, creators will have the option to opt out in the creator hub. But forcing this massive experiment onto games without asking for developer permission first is very irresponsible, because actual games could be completely ruined if 200 people suddenly start flooding the global chat with completely irrelevant or inappropriate content. And finally, we have to look at the official responses to the situation from the developer community themselves, because a good amount of creators are extremely frustrated with how this is being handled. A developer named Nexus came forward and addressed the situation by calling out the AI summaries. They stated that from the example shown, this feature is going to upset everybody, especially the players who do not want AI involved in their games, and pointed out that there's no way for players to disable it, and that the summaries are way too vague to be meaningful. And he also stated that they were hoping for summaries to have actual helpful information, like a person suggesting to put a specific machine in front of another machine, but instead, the system will just spit out a useless message saying a player is trying to help another. And it seems they do not see this as a helpful feature at all, and they fear that the global chat will be extremely confusing in some cases, which highlights the fact that the platform is failing to understand what their own developers actually need. And the frustration did not stop there, because another developer named Thirsty called out the staff for the refusal to let creators disable their summaries. They pointed out how ridiculous it is that instead of giving them an option to disable the flooding chat, they'll now get AI summaries that they also cannot disable. This is a desperate attempt from the platform to force engagement measures higher without actually considering the visual clutter and the annoyance it causes for actual players. Another developer shown here was incredibly sarcastic and thanked the platform for not letting them disable things they do not care about. They acknowledged that the server cross-chat is somewhat cool, but they completely blasted the chat summaries by calling them a big atrocity and begged the staff to reconsider letting them disable that unneeded feature, and openly stated that they literally do not need to see the conversations that they do not care about, for crying out loud. And even the developers who try to see the positive side were still highly critical. This user stated that this is at least a step in the right direction compared to completely blocked chat, but they immediately questioned if the future plans would include actually rephrasing individual messages instead of just giving vague summaries, and suggested that AI should automatically translate and phrase the individual message so players can actually communicate gameplay information. Now, when we really take a step back and look at the core concept of what the platform is trying to achieve here, we can start to see how incredibly disconnected they are from the actual player experience. Because instead of focusing on making the individual game servers more stable or giving developers better moderation tools, they're deciding to artificially force a massive global chat system onto everyone. And this is a massive problem because it completely destroys the tight-knit communities that form naturally within the single server. When you are playing a game, you usually want to talk to the people who are right there, experiencing the exact same moments as you. But by aggressively pushing players into a massive global chat room with 200 completely random people who are in completely different servers, they are turning a localized community experience into a chaotic and unreadable mess. The staff claims that these are automatic updates designed to make communication more seamless for your players, but the reality is that mashing thousands of different conversations together and then filtering them to an AI is the exact opposite of seamless. It creates an incredibly artificial environment where genuine human interaction is constantly being monitored and summarized by AI. And we really have to think about how flawed this AI is actually going to be in practice, because players communicate using extremely specific slang and inside jokes and nuanced context that a machine learning algorithm simply cannot comprehend. And if the system is taking those nuanced conversations and spitting out completely inaccurate or robotic summaries, it completely defeats the purpose of chatting in the first place. Players are constantly finding ways to bypass the standard text filters, and if those bypassed messages are being fed into the system, it's only a matter of time before the AI starts generating deeply inappropriate or confusing summaries for everyone on the server to see, which ultimately proves that this update is less about helping players communicate and more about the platform blindly chasing engagement metrics without caring about the actual quality of the conversations. All in all, this situation entirely exposes the fact that the platform is pushing massive technological changes without adequately considering the desires of the creators who actually build the games. It is deeply concerning that a platform built entirely on user-generated content is becoming so aggressively controlling over how these users are allowed to converse. Forcing these system-level tests on the entire community without a simple way to opt out completely ignores the nuanced needs of different game environments. It forces an unnecessary layer of AI into simple interactions and strips away crucial controls from the developers who need them the most. If they truly want to improve engagement, they need to start treating the developers like actual partners instead of just forcing controversial updates down their throats and expecting them to deal with the fallout. But as always, make sure to leave a comment down below about what you think about this situation. And before I end this video off, I want you guys to make sure to leave a like on this video and help me get to 20,000 subs, because we need to hit that milestone at least before next year. And with that being said, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.